to discuss about shared values and shared interests. We don't want people to get beaten up. Very simple, right? Kind of what Bernie was talking about last week if you were at the long table. We don't want people to not have, we don't want people to not have health insurance, right? So those are the things that we can talk about without having, oh, you anti, oh, you pro, and you anti, oh, you pro. See, yeah, okay. I've danced around for quite a bit. Another strategy that kind of came up was the strategy and tactical versus the reactive, right? So we always hear this, fundamentalist goes, marriage equality should be outlawed or any other equivalent of that. And there are two responses that as an LGBT community we can react to that. The first is reactive, of course. You're a bigot, you're a horrible person. Kind of like when Lawrence Kong came up and started his babble, everyone's like, bigot, 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 bigot. But there's another way of doing this. So the person that we were talking to says, we are not that affected by that statement. We are more concerned about blah, 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 example, livelihood. So this is a more strategic and a more tactical response to people who are anti-LGBT, in the sense that it's also less emotional. It also centralizes the issue that you think should be highlighted. So this is something that you can take when talking to the media. So the media always calls people up when something controversial happens, right? What's your comment on this? What's your comment on that? So this is kind of like how to react to such what do you call it? Drawing out of responses. So a question that we can ask is, when responding to hate speech, is what were their motives? Was it to gain more ground? Was it fame? Was it fortune, for example? But this also works the other way around. So the Human Rights Campaign, as much as I hate them, they've done quite a lot of work in terms of corporate equality index, right? They tell you which companies are pro, will hire LGBT people, and which companies are like funded by fundamentalists. So the Human Rights Campaign was basically saying that their Gloria Jean's shame campaign went completely berserk. It went completely the way that they didn't want it to go. So what happens is Gloria Jean's is funded by fundamentalists, and the Human Rights Campaign just blew it up, saying this horrible, horrible coffee chain, not only are they destroying forests in Africa, they are also destroying LGBT lives. What happened after they did that? The next morning, there were queues and queues and queues of people at Gloria Jean's, right? Because now people are like, oh my god, yeah, you are anti-LGBT, come let me support you. So we have to be very careful as well as to what our motives are when we want to say something. And when we have a call to action, what exactly are we calling to action, and who exactly are we giving that call to action to? Okay, I have like 2 minutes left of that. I just wanted to quickly talk on this thing called the two-tiered activism. So in Alabama, this guy basically told us that you should never push a legislator to a corner to choose between their church and their stance on LGBT publicly. And there's this thing that this term that I've heard of is called two-tiered activism, which is inside and outside. So you can sit down, have frank conversations with legislators or congressmen or whoever, and this is where you can thrash things out, basically. Biba boom, bish, bish, bish. But on the outside, then you have to exercise a little bit more diplomacy, right? You don't want to corner people when they shouldn't be cornered. Because when you corner people, what happens is that you're cornering yourself as well, right? If you corner a legislator in Alabama, they're going to say, I support my church, and then be trouble. Something that potentially had hope of going further was just killed by that. So there's the inside and the outside. I hope that's clear. Another thing, we went to the National Center for Study of Civil Rights and African American Culture. Okay, I realized a lot of things are based in Alabama because it's really a fascinating state. But one thing that came up from the discussion was that kids nowadays can't even fathom segregation, right? So their response to, what do you mean black people and white people cannot sit in the bus together? And you cannot fathom that. It's like, there's no such thing, it cannot have happened. And for a lot of people who lived through the whole civil rights movement, this is dangerous, of course, because there's this fear that it might regress back to that state. or something similar but equally bad. So they're saying that there's a need for education and vigilance, right? And I think the LGBT movement might be moving in a certain way, in that way, and especially it came out very clearly in the US, was that people, the young people, I went to the Pride Rally in New York City, and the young people went to the rally because Demi Lovato was playing, not because there were Stonewall veterans speaking, not because there were big-time activists, long-time activists who have accomplished a lot of stuff were speaking. Not because of that, because Demi Lovato was there, therefore they are there. And you have these like tiny people in their hipster clothing, and there's this amnesia, and there's a need, a huge need to educate the LGBT youths. And I mean, personally, I don't actually know much about the LGBT movement in Singapore, and I feel like there's a lacuna in the writings, or maybe people can point me to where I need to read. But yeah, am I done?
You kind of are.
Last point.
But you're compelling, so keep going.
Okay, two points. Okay, so the Southern Poverty Law Center. It's basically a civil rights center, right? So they are the ones who track down hate groups, and they do a lot of stuff. But what was interesting was that when you walk into their center, not only you had to go through like rigorous security, the entrance was at the back of like this huge building that you cannot find, because they were bombed by the Ku Klux Klan. I cannot remember how long ago. So there's like huge security. But one thing that really stood out was on the panels of their walls was that this wallpaper says racism, and then on the bottom of it, it says fight lesbian and gay oppression. So for me, this image really encapsulates intersectionality, but also something that seems to be very common in the LGBT organizations now, which is the moving away from identity politics to social justice frameworks and standing up for injustice. This is something that came up over and over again for many organizations. For the National Center for Transgender Equality in DC, they were like, after Hillary Clinton made that speech, things for LGBT rights basically moved so fast that they're running out of things to do, right? The aim of every NGO is to cease to exist, is to cease to have to fulfill unfulfilled needs, right? So what happens is that they have to start finding new things to do. Otherwise, funders will run away, and which is very pragmatic approach. I'm kind of grossed out by it, but it's a fact. And so the National Center for Transgender Equality actually said that they want to move to an anti-poverty organization. So they finally realized that the root of a lot of transgender oppression lies in poverty or class status. Yeah, okay. Oh yeah, one more thing that was very interesting. So the not LA Center. So we went to the San Diego LGBT Community Center, and as well as Casa Ruby. So they both provide services for the community, right? The LGBT Center in San Diego provides food bank, right? So they get from all the supermarkets and the bakeries that have food that they want to throw out but still can eat, and they give it out to everybody and anybody. As well as Casa Ruby, they have food, they have internet services, and they open their doors to everybody and anybody, and I really mean everybody and anybody, not just LGBT people. So when we were in those spaces, we had cisgendered, heterosexual men coming in and utilizing the services in those spaces. Whether it's taking food, whether it's taking internet. These people can be homeless, they can be drug users, they can be sex workers, etc., etc. And there's no judgment. It is open door policy. I'm not going to question you when you walk into my door. Are you a lesbian? Are you gay? No, you cannot take my food if you're not. It doesn't happen that way. And I found this amazing because when we talk about coming out, we really want to influence people around us, right? But when you offer a service that is completely blind of identity, you foster a deeper connection between people. Okay, this is an artwork by the California, California Center in New York City, and it's a homeless shelter for LGBT youths, and it's situated in the heart of Harlem. This is the San Diego LGBT Community Center. Oh, there we go. That's the artwork that's made by the LGBT youths who are homeless. So going back to the whole public education strategy. I wanted to point out the San Diego LGBT Community Center because there's a huge population of Latinas and Latinos in San Diego. And they respect that. As an LGBT center, they respect that. The Latino services are completely conducted in Latina and Latino.
Spanish.
Sorry.
Wow.
And they have an altar. These are the pictures, if you can see it, the pictures of their clients who have passed away for whatever reasons. They hold rituals and services in this space as well. They also have a theologian that comes in once in a while to help people out who are struggling with questions of religion and sexuality. So the sweet spot, okay, I might end with this, is the center where all three circles are intersecting with each other. And what is the sweet spot? So I talked very quickly about how each of these circles kind of are mutually reinforcing. But what is in the circle? And for me, and it can be something else for you, in New York City, we found out that all the LGBT organizations, the executive directors come together on a weekly basis to meet up and to discuss strategies, to discuss about their new works, to discuss, share information, educate each other. And these meetings are facilitated by an external consulting agency. And similarly, in San Diego, their Pride in San Diego is actually an organization. So they work throughout the year to set up Pride, which is once a year. They organize monthly meetups with all the LGBT groups in San Diego in order to share calendars, okay, so that people don't clash with each other's calendars. For example, mutual respect, obviously, is encapsulated in that, update each other and strategize. So for me, this is amazing because you have different organizations working on different aspects of activisms, on different issues as well, coming together, educating each other, talking to each other, and really working as a collective. I'm going to talk one last sentence. San Diego was also fascinating for me because it is literally at the border with Mexico. And I crossed the border to Mexico too. And I walked across, by the way. I just walked, I crossed this big gate, this guy with an AK-47 standing there, and I was like, my friend was like, welcome to Mexico. I was like, what? Don't I have to stamp my passport or something? No. I got shit trying to come out of Mexico though, so that was fun. I could still be in Mexico right now. But anyway, this is the border of Mexico and San Diego. There's a huge history here, and I'm sure I am not going to be able to summarize it very well, is that a lot of people from Mexico were brought into the United States to fight the wars on behalf of the United States. And a lot of these war veterans were then exiled and banished back into Mexico after the wars were done. And these walls actually have the names of a lot of veterans who have died in Mexico. And I thought it kind of encapsulates a lot of the issues with the United States, not just with LGBT activism, but as a whole. And I'm going to end with that.